The atmosphere is thick with a predatory tension that only breaks when the scene shifts to the protagonist, Erica, who is finishing her shift and hoping for a quiet evening with her boyfriend. Despite her initial disappointment that he is tied up with work, he surprises her later that night, their reunion marked by a genuine warmth and affection that contrasts sharply with the coldness of the city streets. They decide to take their dog for a walk in the park, letting the animal roam free while they settle onto a bench to discuss their future, sharing a moment of domestic peace that feels fragile in retrospect. Their tranquility is shattered when they realize the dog has wandered too far, leading them to a group of hoodlums who have cornered the pet and are already recording the confrontation on their phones. The encounter quickly spirals into a nightmare as the hoodlums demand the couple's valuables, their voices overlapping in a chaotic chorus of threats and demands for rings and watches. Erica is thrown against a stone wall with sickening force, her face blooming with dark bruises and blood as she struggles to maintain consciousness while watching her partner endure a far worse fate. He is beaten mercilessly with a baseball bat and stomped into the dirt, the attackers showing no remorse as they record the violence for their own twisted entertainment. When help finally arrives, both are rushed to the emergency room in critical condition, where the sterile lights and frantic movements of the staff underscore the gravity of their injuries. In the same hospital, Detective Mercer begins his investigation into a separate but related tragedy, questioning a young woman whose father has been killed, subtly shifting the suspicion toward her powerful stepfather. The stepfather, a man named Morrow, overhears the implications and confronts Mercer with a defensive arrogance, but the detective remains unfazed, his eyes weary from years of witnessing the city's cyclical violence. 3 weeks pass in a blur of medical machinery and hushed voices before Erica finally emerges from her coma, her mind foggy and her body aching from the trauma she sustained. The weight of her situation becomes unbearable when she is gently told that her partner did not survive the attack, a revelation that shatters her remaining composure and leaves her drowning in a sea of grief. Following her release, she meets with police officers to attempt an identification of her attackers, but the faces are nothing more than smeared charcoal in her memory, leaving the detectives with no leads to follow. Returning to her apartment, she is greeted by a deafening silence that is only broken by the ghosts of her past life, as she moves through rooms filled with reminders of the man she lost. Every ordinary sound, like the hurried footsteps of a stranger on the sidewalk, now registers as a potential threat, heightening her sense of vulnerability and isolation. This constant state of fear drives her back to the station for updates, but the dismissive attitude of the officers only fuels a growing frustration that she is being left to fend for herself. Driven by a desperate need for protection, Erica visits a local gun shop, but the legal hurdles and waiting periods make her feel even more exposed than before. As she exits the shop, a man approaches her in the shadows, sensing her desperation and offering a shortcut that bypasses the law in exchange for a price she is willing to pay. He places a weapon in her hands, a cold piece of steel that represents both her fear and her burgeoning resolve to never be a victim again. She returns to her work at a radio station, but her mind is elsewhere as she monitors police scanners and captures the ambient sounds of the city, weaving them into a sonic tapestry of urban decay. Meanwhile, Detective Mercer finds himself at a bar, venting his frustrations to his ex-wife, a lawyer who refuses to help him build a case against Morrow because of the ethical boundaries she refuses to cross. His obsession with bringing Morrow to justice is a slow-burning fire, one that consumes his personal life and leaves him looking for any crack in the man's armor that might lead to a conviction. The trajectory of Erica's life changes forever when she enters a small convenience store and witnesses a domestic dispute escalate into a double homicide. A man, frantic and enraged over access to his children, opens fire on the shop attendant before turning his weapon on a woman, leaving them both dead on the floor. Erica hides in the aisles, her heart hammering against her ribs, but when her phone rings and gives away her position, she is forced to act. She moves with a sudden, lethal grace that surprises even her, circling the gunman and ending his life with a single, calculated shot before the police can even be notified. She leaves the store before the sirens begin to wail, returning home in a daze, her hands remarkably steady despite the fact that she has just taken a human life. The police arrive to find a confusing crime scene where no money was stolen and the primary aggressor is dead, leaving Mercer to ponder the strange symmetry of the violence. Back at her radio station, Erica struggles to reclaim her professional voice, freezing during her first broadcast back as the reality of her actions competes with the script in front of her. She eventually finds her footing, turning her show into a poetic exploration of New York City's darkness. Speaking to the fear that lingers in the shadows, and the insecurity that residents feel every time they step outside. Her words resonate with a city that feels increasingly under siege, but they also serve as a private confession of the transformation taking place within her own soul. This transformation is tested again on a late-night train ride when she encounters a group of thugs harassing an elderly man and a young boy, their laughter echoing through the nearly empty car. Unlike the other passengers who look away, Erica remains seated, her eyes fixed on the aggressors with a calm that unnerves them, even as they turn their attention toward her. When they produce a knife and press it against her, she doesn't flinch, instead drawing her own weapon and ending the threat with a series of precise shots that leave the thugs slumped in their seats. In the aftermath of the train shooting, Erica finds herself questioning why she felt no hesitation and why her hands didn't shake as she stepped off the platform and vanished into the night. Detective Mercer, investigating the scene, begins to notice a pattern in the recent string of vigilante killings, noting that the ballistics match the weapon used in the convenience store shooting. He begins to suspect that someone is intentionally purging the city's criminal element, a theory that gains weight when he crosses paths with Erica again near a crime scene. She introduces herself as the radio host he interviewed, and while he is initially dismissive of the press, something about her quiet intensity leaves a lasting impression on him. Erica returns home to listen to the recordings of her victim's final moments, a grim ritual that reinforces her belief that she is doing what the law cannot. Her colleague at the station notices a change in her demeanor, but they assume it is simply the lingering effects of her grief, unaware of the blood on her hands. Detective Mercer eventually agrees to sit down for a formal interview with Erica, letting his guard down as they discuss the difficulties of working within a legal system that often protects the guilty. He admits that the case against Muro is a source of constant torment, as the man's influence allows him to evade justice for the murder of his own wife. During their conversation, Erica asks him what it feels like to pull a trigger, and Mercer responds with a chilling honesty about the comfort of being on the right side of the law. He notes that people who kill outside the rules don't get the luxury of a clear conscience, a statement that hangs in the air between them like a challenge. Erica counters by explaining that some people don't heal from trauma, but instead fade into a different version of themselves just to survive, a sentiment that Mercer seems to understand on a visceral level. They end the night with a shared understanding that transcends their professional roles, though the secrets between them remain thick and unspoken. The vigilantes' activities continue to polarize the city, with Erica's radio show serving as a forum for citizens to debate whether this mystery shooter is a hero or a common criminal. During one particularly heated broadcast, Erica becomes overwhelmed by the conflicting opinions of her callers and the weight of her own guilt, leading her to storm out of the studio. She goes to the police station with the intent of confessing, but when she stands before an officer, the words die in her throat, and she realizes she is not yet ready to give up her mission. Her resolve is further tested when she intervenes in a dangerous situation involving a man who has kidnapped a young girl, leading to a high-speed car chase and another lethal confrontation. She manages to save the girl, Chloe, and disappears before the police arrive, but Mercer is beginning to close in, his investigative instincts pointing directly toward the woman he has come to admire. He discovers that Erica was at the scene of Muro's death, which was officially ruled an accident but bore the hallmarks of a calculated execution. As Mercer digs deeper, he finds evidence that Erica has been tracking her original attackers, using her resources to find the names and addresses of the men who killed her partner. He realizes that she is walking a path of no return, and that his duty to the law is now in direct conflict with his personal feelings for her. Meanwhile, Erica receives a video of her own assault from a woman who was too afraid to speak to the police, the footage serving as a brutal reminder of why she started her crusade. She forwards the video to Mercer, knowing it will lead him to the same address where she is headed for her final confrontation with the men who destroyed her life. She arrives at their hideout and retrieves her dog, but her desire for justice outweighs her need for escape, and she stays to finish what they started in the park. The final confrontation is a chaotic struggle for survival as Erica is nearly overpowered by the remaining thug, his hands tightening around her throat as she gasps for air. Mercer arrives just in time to intervene, but instead of arresting Erica, he finds himself transformed by the evidence of her suffering and the systemic failure he represents. He hands her his own service weapon, a silent endorsement of her brand of justice, and watches as she delivers the final blow to the man who took everything from her. To protect her, Mercer instructs her to shoot him in the shoulder, creating a narrative that the criminals turned on each other and he was wounded in the crossfire. This act of collusion seals their bond and ensures ensures that the Vigilante remains a ghost in the city's history, a legend whispered about in the shadows. In the final moments, Erica walks away from the scene with her dog by her side, her identity forever changed by the violence she has both endured and inflicted. She is no longer the woman who stood in the park dreaming of a future, but a survivor who has carved her own path through the darkness of New York City. Mercer remains on the force, carrying the secret of their pact, as he continues to navigate a world where the lines between right and wrong have become permanently blurred. The city continues to pulse with its own rhythm, unaware that its most famous protector and its most dedicated detective have rewritten the rules of engagement. As Erica returns to her life, the echoes of the past remain, but she moves forward with a quiet certainty that she is finally the master of her own fate.